A higher power's with us. Bless you, brothers and sisters. Of course, I'm jumping right in. Okay, this is in preparation for our Patreon tomorrow, so I thought I would at least give y'all some insight of what we'll be talking about. Okay? Now, shalom, shalom, shalom. This will not be a long stream at all. Trust me this time. All right? Now, I have a good question for you all. You can see the title of this particular update. I'll call it an update.
I'm going to put this on YouTube.
It's an update. Environmental war.
Bloomfield, Michigan, 1942. As World War II rages across several continents, acclaimed architect and eventual designer of the St. Louis Arch, Eero Saarinen, is secretly enlisted by the United States military to work for a new clandestine organization. Its name? The OSS, Office of Strategic Services, or as it is known today, the CIA.
The fact that Eero Saarinen was in the OSS designing weapon systems during World War II, and at a time when the OSS was looking into ways to weaponize weather, makes his whole connection to the design of the St. Louis Arch extremely interesting. Now, that isn't to say I believe it can control the weather, but it does open the door to the idea that it might have been one of the things Saarinen was out to achieve.
While at the OSS, Saarinen designed buildings and weapon systems, many of which were never completed or built. Is it possible he later used these secret plans to engineer the St. Louis Arch, creating something that can actually control or perhaps harness the weather?
Controlling the weather is the ultimate superweapon. It's even more powerful than the atomic bomb. So if Eero Saarinen was involved in analyzing and studying the possibility of weather modification, and you put all those factors together, and I think you have a guy that basically conducted a big, giant weather modification experiment with the St. Louis Arch.
Weather as a weapon? There are some who think the idea is not as preposterous as it seems, especially when considering that even today, many world governments are pouring millions of dollars into research designed to manipulate weather.
I think weather modification has definitely been an ongoing endeavor of governments all over the world for decades. The St. Louis Arch appears to be an experiment in weather modification. The H.A.A.R.P device appears to be an experiment in weather modification. Who knows what the Russians or the Chinese are doing? There's some sort of technology out there.
There's been lots of work in the field of weather control, using silver iodide inside of thunderstorms to decrease the size of hail. That goes on in many parts of the world to alleviate that problem. They're always firing rockets into the atmosphere in China to manipulate the weather. But is this a good idea?
You wonder if you could steer a tornado. What would it take? Even a nuclear weapon might just nudge it, if even that.
One challenge with that is your shock wave is going to be hard to focus, perhaps, and it might cause the damage you were hoping to avoid with the tornado. I would be looking at how much can I control or change local pressures in the atmosphere near and around the tornado.
These are forces at work that could wipe out major cities. And we're finding out every day new things that we've never seen before. So maybe the lesson learned here is we shouldn't meddle with forces that we don't really understand, because we may not like the result.
Everyone was warned, but no one listened. A rise in temperature, ocean patterns changed, and ice caps melted. They called it extreme weather. They didn't know what extreme was. In the year of 2019, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and droughts unleashed a wave of destruction upon our planet. We didn't just lose towns, or beachfronts. We lost entire cities. The East River swallowed lower Manhattan. A heat wave killed 2 million people in Madrid in just one day. But in that moment, facing our own extinction, it became clear that no single nation could solve this problem alone. The world came together as one, and we fought back. Scientists from 17 countries, led by the US and China, worked tirelessly, not as representatives of their nations, but of humanity. They found a way to neutralize the storms, with a net of thousands of satellites, each deploying countermeasures designed to impact the basic elements of weather: heat, pressure, and water, all overseen by the International Space Station. They gave the satellite net a technical name, but we all came to call it Dutch Boy, after the story of the child who plugged a dam with his finger. This is what saved us all. And it was built by a team led by one man. My father.
How many of you have ever heard of Environmental Modification Convention? Environmental Modification Convention. A lot of you didn't even know that that convention ever existed, right? Now, I was wondering what was going on with my phone last night. Every couple of moments, there was this emergency alert going off on my phone. Flood, 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 flash floods. Get to an area, get to a safe area. And you know, just like probably Noah and the prophets were doing back in the past, we just prophesied through the storm, right? The Most High, like the Israelites in Goshen, had the storm pass over while we were doing the will of the Most High. I really didn't understand how grave an emergency that was last night during the broadcast, breaking down zombie prophecies, but I digress. Again, not most of you have ever heard of environmental modification. Let's figure out what that is. If you go to Wikipedia or any encyclopedia, okay, you can pull up the definition or the words Environmental Modification Convention. What is it? Let's discuss what this is. The Environmental Modification Convention, ENMOD, formerly the Convention on the Prohibition of Military or any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques, is an international treaty prohibiting the military or other hostile use of environmental modification techniques having widespread, long-lasting, or severe effects. It opened for signature on May 18th, 1977 in the Geneva and entered into force October 5th, 1978. Now, the Geneva Convention is a convention that countries share in, okay, to make sure no country go outside of regular warfare rules. It's called the Geneva Convention. So the convention bans weather warfare. What's weather warfare? What is weather warfare? The convention bans weather warfare, which is the use of weather modification techniques for the purposes of inducing damage or destruction. The Convention of Biological Diversity of 2010, biological, would also ban some forms of weather modification or geoengineering.
Like I'm taking a vacation.
Okay?
To a place 250 miles straight up.
Okay, so what's
negative
fact?
450 degrees. Some holiday.
What's fact is that weather warfare
We built this system of satellites to stop
is true.
natural disasters.
It's an agreement that other countries cannot use weather warfare on one another. Right?
There's potential
Okay.
catastrophic weather events on a global
Now here's the
scale.
strange thing.
A geostorm.
The day before yesterday, we were driving on 95, going into the old world, or the old cities near New England. We were on the road. And I noticed this. This was the day before yesterday on 95, rolling into what? Near New London. On my way near, we went past New York, near upstate New York. We went all the way through 95, past Connecticut. And look what I seen in the sky. How many of you believe that these are regular cloud patterns? Is this the pattern of clouds that the Most High developed naturally? So when I seen this, I knew in particular from an expert I had on our radio show years ago that this looks like there's patterns of waves that have separated clouds. Okay? And I said the day before yesterday, something is coming. When I seen this in the sky, I said, quote unquote, I took my camera, opened the window over my head in the car, and I looked through the window and I began to take pictures, and I said, what? Something is coming. Okay, I took pictures right through the sunroof. I said, it's either, who knows, maybe an earthquake or a storm will be coming. I took these pictures the day before yesterday. And then the next day, we get tornadoes in New Jersey. I've never heard of tornadoes going through Pennsylvania, New Jersey. And it came straight off the Gulf Stream, right following the pattern of 95, the same pattern I was actually driving the day before. Tuesday morning, I was on this road and recognized. So here it is. When you look up again, Environmental Modification Convention, it's the power to be able to carry storms on waves. On waves. Now, who knows, right? 3 storms. Now, there's some people who just went through 2020 that could not withstand another tragic scenario. You know how many businesses that will never resurface after this because they couldn't recover financially from 2020? And it seems like it carefully went along the shorelines. Okay? So a lot of that shore property, I need y'all to look out for this. A lot of the shore property and retail businesses. Let's find out how many stores, retails, mom and pop stores that will never recover from this. There's a lot. And on top of that, when it's natural disasters, it's tough for insurance claims. Insurance companies, they probably pay a little bit, but they don't really recover people in a natural disaster. Okay? So, But the point I'm going to leave you all with before I go, because I have to go,
the National Weather Service issuing a flash flood emergency.
the point that I want to leave y'all with is,
7 inches of rain in just a few hours.
when you listen to the news
The Western Hemisphere's
today,
busiest subway system
let's see if
shut
the
down.
narrative
Waterfalls
strangely
pouring down
changes
station stairs,
to
trains
blaming
stuck on
people
platforms submerged. People wading through waist-high water.
to
Above
why
ground,
the
stranded
weather is
cars
like it
and water
is.
rescues everywhere.
FDNY members rescuing someone
Because it seems like no matter what event comes out, even if something comes from somewhere that we have nothing to do with,
Right there, as a man
the
was
people
across
end
the
up
city.
being
And
what?
in Queens,
The
a partial
culprits.
building collapse. At least two
It's the people to why
And at
things
Newark Airport
won't
in
go
New
back to
Jersey,
normal.
the wettest day
Let's see
ever
if they're going
recorded.
to somehow spin a narrative to claim
Hundreds
that
of
because
flights
people are breathing and living and whatever the case is, that the weather has began to fight back. Okay? You know what they call it. You know what they call it. But let's see if they start using this change word out there to blame people for the storm and not talk about what I seen the day before.
There are overlaps between the challenge of fighting the pandemic and the challenge of fighting climate change. What steps can government take to address them both at the same time?
Well, the idea that you count on government to see problems out in the future and to really look at the science and understand what will work, what won't work. The pandemic illustrates that government didn't look out for us despite the warnings that were out there. Climate fits that same paradigm. Sadly, in the case of climate, as it gets worse and worse towards the end of the century, there isn't anything like a vaccine that you can spend, tens of billions on, and then boom, your mistakes, although they're horrific, you can bring it to a close. Climate change is much harder, and the damage that will be done every year will be greater than what we've seen during this pandemic. So, I hope it's a wake-up call to think, okay, what else are we being warned about? Does it take, what percentage of government resources would that take? And holding people to account that even things that take a long time, we have to get started now on.
I'm going to talk today about energy and climate. And that might seem a bit surprising because my full-time work at the foundation is mostly about vaccines and seeds, about the things that we need to invent and deliver to help the poorest 2 billion live better lives. But energy and climate are extremely important to these people. In fact, more important than to anyone else on the planet. The climate getting worse means that many years their crops won't grow. There'll be too much rain, not enough rain. Things will change in ways that their fragile environment simply can't support. And that leads to starvation, it leads to uncertainty, it leads to unrest. So the climate changes will be terrible for them. Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. Now that's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look.
Waves in the sky. The Most High don't make currents in the sky like this. I've seen natural clouds all my life, folks. And we need to find out what people has the power to use environmental modification convention? I mean, use weather warfare under the Environmental Modification Convention. Who was there and agreed not to use weather warfare? Which means those are the people that should be blamed and not the population who's under assault.
Despite the cost, however, NASA does need to test these engines once in a while. So they built this place in the wetlands of Mississippi. They even had to move 5 cemeteries, because the noise they were planning on making would wake the dead. Don't worry if you can't hear what I'm saying. I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And, as it turns out, the cleanest. Now, the most amazing thing is that that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain. I told you! It's raining!
And at Newark Airport in New
That's
Jersey,
unbelievable!
the wettest day ever recorded. Flooding taking over
NASA's
baggage
playing
terminals.
God!
Hundreds
It's
of
making
flights
its own
canceled.
weather!
So let's see how they go in their narrative.
We have a great opportunity at this moment, like we had after World War II, to create this global reset, to have in some way a new beginning in our global cooperation, in globalization, in managing our global affairs. First, we deeply believe in the power of the collaborative efforts of all stakeholders of global societies. If we want to address the global challenges, governments have a leading role, governments have a leading role, governments have a leading role.
Let's see if the people will go along with accepting the news and others blaming the people for that storm. They're going to call it some change or call it some stuff, and they're going to say it's the environment and all this old other stuff. And at the end of the day, it's going to say what?
If we focus on pandemics now, and there isn't one, say, for another 100 years, what is the next disaster? What is the one that we're not prepared for?
Well, I'd point out two. One is climate change. Every year that would be a death toll even greater than we've had in this pandemic. Also related to pandemics is something people don't like to talk about much, which is bioterrorism, that somebody who wants to cause damage could engineer a virus. And so that means the cost, the chance of running into this is more than just the naturally caused epidemics like the current one.
We're going to have to really look into how much energy we're using, how much fuel we're using. We must up the taxes so that we can actually adjust how much people use, because it's really causing issues with the weather.
This is a YouTube video from a future. Not the future, just a future.
From January, every citizen of England and Wales will have a new social credit score. Government and private companies may use your social credit score to make decisions about you. For example, your score could affect the deposit you're asked to pay when renting a home. It could also give you discounts when you're shopping, put you in the priority queue for a new passport, or help you access some healthcare services more quickly. Your social credit score is based on information that the government already knows: the electoral roll, tax payments, criminal records, property ownership, and travel history. If you want to increase your score, you can choose to share more personal information securely with our certified partner companies. Information like your credit card purchases, communications and health information from your phone, energy use data from your smart meter, and your viewing and listening history from streaming companies. That information helps our carefully selected machine learning systems trust you, your friends, and your family. Plus, you can get fun tips on how to increase your score on the Social Credit app. Your social credit score is also affected by the scores of the people you live, work, and spend time with. Everyone's score is public by default. You can check it on the Social Credit app so you can make informed decisions about your life. You can hide your score, but in some cases this may cause it to drop. Some things like disruptive actions, hiding your data trail, or making decisions that harm others could lower your score over time. If this happens, you may find it harder to access certain government and private services. So if you have an old housemate, friend, or relative that you don't spend time with anymore, you may want to file a formal notice of disassociation on the Social Credit app. If you're a dual citizen of Scotland or any other European Union nation, then privacy laws mean we can't give you a social credit score. Because of that, your access to some government and private services may be limited. If you're a citizen of Google, Facebook, or another corporation, please refer to their support pages for advice. Social Credit Scores from the Department for Community and Culture, helping us to help you.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now, the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good. Around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
I think being ranked is a good thing. A society has to have rules.
It forces us to be well behaved.
It may seem scary, but it's just like that here. We're used to it, and anyway, we don't have a choice.
But in an effort to keep all of its subjects in line, Beijing is taking the system a step further in 2020. It's aggregating data gathered by banks, private companies, and the state to rate if someone's a good or bad citizen.
So more restrictions on the people. More restrictions on the people. Because of this. Because of this. Now, I'm going to let you all tie 2 and 2 together, but I took pictures the day before yesterday. And then the next day, coincidentally, a storm comes from the Gulf of Mexico and follow the same trail of 95 I was on the day before, taking this picture. Coincidence? You think? But eventually, I'm going to tell you right now, what's going on is an assault on the world. And guess what? Yeah. The United Union is being torn apart. Babylon the Great is fallen, it's fallen. And each day we will hear of a new event. And it was like this before what? Before the Most High freed the children of Israel. Whether it be, and at the end of the day, even though we know the elite powers in the world are operating this, it's the Most High God, our God, allowing it. This is for amendment for those who agreed with the destruction of our people. So, Babylon the Great is fallen. One thing about a corporation, and that's what this country is, made out of England. Anytime they want, they can dismantle and sell off the company. See you tomorrow on Patreon. Patreon, that's right, /A-Gathering144. Be there. Shalom. Patreon /A-Gathering144. Be there tomorrow. You don't want to miss the next report. Shalom.
We ain't playing no games no more. We're ready for war, yeah. We ain't playing no games no more. We're ready for war. We're ready for war, yeah. We're ready for war. I hit the block, prophesied about 100 missiles, drone flying by, bullets ricochet, they rip through tissue. NSA got you in the scope, just hope they miss you. Y'all got them cyborgs, they got them androids. They making life, but it's artificial. They making clones without no souls, I'm talking mind control. They got them guns, they hit your mind through telepathy. They making antimatter bombs as they weaponry. Them talking quantum physics, summoning raising spirits. They got them laser guns, they got them weather guns. Oh, you thought that was something? You thought they busted something? You thought that something compared to when Christ is coming? You ain't seen nothing.